Well, and that's exactly why I love sharing and, with entrepreneurs, because I do believe that even though we must have a dream to have a dream come true, my journey started without a dream and really being clueless about what it was I wanted and deeply in debt, just personal debt. So December 31st, 1979, at about 9 p.m., New Year's Eve, I picked up a copy of the book Think and Grow Rich and began to read the book. My husband and friends decided, AJ, to go out and celebrate the new year. I was just not feeling it for once in a while. I just couldn't go out and celebrate again, knowing that things just were not right financially for me. So got this book, began to read it, got to page 28 in my version of the book, and the author asked me 4 questions and gave me 6 steps to riches. But the first question he asked me, and this is how my construction journey started, he asked me, Ann McNeil, I made it personal, put my name in there, and he said, how much money do you want?
Welcome to the Business Problem Solvers Podcast. I'm your host, AJ Vassar, and I have the honor to interview Miss Ann McNeil, who is by far one of the most accomplished entrepreneurs I personally know. And I say that because when Miss Ann started, she started at zero and she grew her company to where her payroll was over $80,000 a week. That means how many? That's what she had to pay out to her employees every week. And she has told me that she did it even when she didn't have it at times. She got creative. So I want you all to hear about this story because her payroll was more than the median income for the US, and that was weekly. So, Miss Ann, I am so excited to talk to you today. How are you?
Listen, AJ, if I were any better, I'd be you.
I keep telling you, don't go backwards. You are doing it. I'm trying to get to where you are.
I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot from you. So thank you. And it's a privilege to be here to share with your entrepreneurs and all of your listeners, because I do believe, like we've talked about, the fact that you must have a dream in order to have a dream come true. And so, as you're introducing me and talking about my payroll, I'm the first Black female contractor in my state that operates at the level that I do. I focus on billion-dollar programs, but I'm a very small business. So I want to make sure the context is right. And so, if you Google construction or you Google Black women in construction, I will come up on the first page of Google.
That-
So,
That's
yes,
amazing. First of all, you're a woman in construction.
a Black woman.
That
That's a
that so no, I love that you're a Black woman, but the fact that you're just a woman, period, because you have white women that may have had it. They may have had husbands helping them. They may have, right? Because I know some people, especially when the DEI thing kicked off. I know people personally that would put the business in their wife's name so that they could get certain credits, but they ran the business. Like that's why I'm like, no, you a woman. Like I love the fact that you black, but you just did this as a woman. That's phenomenal. And then you're a
yeah.
black woman on top of that. Incredible, right? So how
Yes.
did
And from the South, let's add that too.
and from the South. So where are you from?
I was born and raised in the beautiful city of Riviera Beach, Florida.
Okay, okay. So
Yes.
you're a Florida
Riviera
girl.
Beach. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So how did this journey start? Because I think that's everybody's question. Because it's cool to talk about where you are now. How did you start?
Well, and that's exactly why I love sharing and, with entrepreneurs, because I do believe that even though we must have a dream to have a dream come true, my journey started without a dream and really being clueless about what it was I wanted and deeply in debt, just personal debt. So December 31st, 1979, at about 9 p.m., New Year's Eve, I picked up a copy of the book Think and Grow Rich and began to read the book. My husband and friends decided, AJ, to go out and celebrate the new year. I was just not feeling it for once in a while. I just couldn't go out and celebrate again, knowing that things just were not right financially for me. So got this book, began to read it, got to page 28 in my version of the book, and the author asked me 4 questions and gave me 6 steps to riches. But the first question he asked me, and this is how my construction journey started, he asked me, Ann McNeil, I made it personal, put my name in there. And he said, how much money do you want? I'd never been asked that question. I went to question number 2. He said, but what are you going to do in return for the money? I just kept reading. Then he said, by what date do you want the money by? And I just kept reading like most of us do, just reading for the sake of reading. But when I got to question number 4, he asked me to write a plan of action for exactly how much doing what by when we're going to make this money. So I said, you know what? My friends and husbands out celebrating New Year. I'm home alone. Why don't I go back and answer the question, how much money do I really want? Because I realized at that point, I'd been settling for what people were willing to give me as a salary for pay and a job, good corporate job. And so I said, I'd love to make $1,000. So my question number 1 was $1,000. He said, what are you going to do in return for the money? Now, my answer, I found out later, was not a good answer, but I said I'd save the money. Question number 3 said, by what date? I said December 31st, 1980 would be a good date, which was a year from when I started reading the book. But AJ, when I got to question number 4, and he asked me to write out a plan, I said, okay, when I make this much, I spend this much, I got a negative number. So I said, no, can't not be right. I mean, it's right because I'm borrowing from Peter, pay Paul. So I said, no, let me write it down. I wrote it down, how much I made by then a month in my mind, just pull some numbers and what I was spending a month, and the negative number got bigger. I said, no, cannot be right. So I got a calculator. See, I have an undergraduate degree in accounting. I was working on a master's in finance at the time. So this was before computers, date myself. Okay. So it was like the calculator where you had to do the number and you had to pull the thing back, right? Yes, I'm going all the way back there. So anyway, I said, let me pull out all my canceled checks for the first 11 months. And I don't know about you, AJ, but sometimes on this wheel of life, we're going to get to it. One day I'm going to sit down and read that book. One day I'm going to sit down and really figure out where am I on this debt trail. So that night I decided was the night that I was going to sit down and pull out all my canceled checks for the first 11 months of the year. And I tell you, I had a rude awakening. Again, this is before computers, and I just took a sheet of paper, turned it sideways, and I wrote date, payee, amount, and then across the top, where was I spending the money? January, it was a negative. February, a negative. March, I don't need to go through the end of the year, through November. They were all negative, but the negative kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, I knew I was borrowing from Peter, pay Paul, but I just didn't know how bad it was. And people ask me, why were you so deep in debt? And you're a young person. Because my husband and I bought our own property. Then we bought the house across the street. I didn't realize we moved into a neighborhood in West Palm Beach. If any of you are familiar with the Kravitz Center and the Convention Center, our house sat up underneath that property. But we didn't know what we didn't know, and we didn't have a crystal ball to see in the future that this is where neighborhoods were going, Black neighborhoods were going. And so we bought the house across the street. We bought the house down the street. And just on what, now we knew nothing about construction, nothing whatsoever. But we ended up with 3 or 4 houses on the same street. I don't know anything about flight, nothing. I just know these signs just kept going up. And so we would stop. They would say for sale by owner. We had no credit. And back then, shockingly, people didn't ask for anything. They just made arrangements with you. And that was it. So we said, we would call people and say, can we just pay you, X number of dollars a month? And they would say yes. And that's it. No credit check, all this stuff didn't go on anyway. So my husband and I'm sitting there and I realized I'm deep in debt and I have no way of getting out. We just got this one property and then the other one. So I said that night, I don't want to live like this anymore, AJ. So I said, let me see, how can I save $1,000 a year? And I couldn't figure it out. So what if I get a part-time job? What if I start a business? And I started doing all these things And now it's 4 o'clock in the morning. The door opens. My husband and friends are coming in from celebrating the new year. I am sitting there crying. Now, you're a fella, you're a guy, you're a man. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Come on, somebody. He's
Hey,
just coming in.
oh, what happened? I'm
Well,
just
I'm there
I
crying.
oh
Wait,
yeah,
now you think he thinks I'm crying over him.
right, of course, because I'm like,
Wait, ladies, if any ladies are listening, I let him.
right,
Okay.
right,
But the realization I was crying over that debt and fact that I was hopeless. But this is what happened. I'm gonna fast forward the story. The next morning I got up, I continued to read the book, and this is what changed my life. I got to the chapter that talked about a mastermind group. If you have a goal, because Napoleon Hill walked us through how do you take these 6 steps. And if any of your listeners is interested in what the steps are, if you text the word "and," that's ANN, to 59925, I'll send the rest of that to you, the 6 steps. 59925, to make sure I say that. That's the number. Text me at that number and put ANN in the chat. The next morning I got up, I came upon the chapter of the mastermind, and this changed everything. So he said, get together two individuals of like minds and like spirit and hold each other accountable. The two must be in agreement to add the third. The three must be in agreement to add the fourth. And I started doing that into 1980. We formed our first mastermind group. Fast forward, that group, we took those questions and we met every single Saturday at 7 a.m., rotating each other's houses, never missed a Saturday. Some people missed,
right,
but fast forward, I got out that debt, ended up taking me about 10 years. Not only did I end up saving that $1,000 a year, but right now, my goal is to make $1,000 a month, $1,000 a week, now making $1,000 a day passive income. Passive may not be much, but when your mind kicks into passive, that's a whole nother conversation. But in that time, I ended up becoming the first Black female contractor in my state because I had to begin to realize that I did not have the skill. Talk about business entrepreneurship now. I did not have a idea for a business that would generate me the kind of money in addition to my salary from my job. So I tell all entrepreneurs that are currently entrepreneurs, which means you are inside of somebody's corporation and you have a little something on the side, but you keep your job until I'll be like Ann McNeil, because I left my job too early, AJ, and I had to beg them to take me back.
okay,
Okay, because nobody told me when I first started my business that the bills don't stop coming.
right,
They don't stop coming just because you got incorporated and got an EIN number. Okay. So I had to go back to work. And this time I said, never again will I leave without knowing that I've got to feed that business. So I come home from work one day, we're buying these properties. My husband says to me, now this is into the years, he says to me, you know, if I had to do it all over again, I would not go to college. Now, my husband graduated valedictorian. I graduated, thank you, Lordy. That's where we met. So for him to say he would not go to college, I was shocked. I said, what would you do? He said, think about it. He said, these guys that come in here and they make more in 1 hour. Calls me babe. He said, babe, they make more in 1 hour than you make on that corporate job
wow,
in a day. They make more in 1 hour than I make in a day. He said, yes. And they don't have any college debt. They don't have all of this stuff that we got to pay back. And I said, but what did they do? How did they do that? He said, they went to trade school. I said, I'm going to go to a trade school. And that's what I ended up doing, AJ. I went to trade school and I began to learn how to build while working a corporate job and while working on a master's degree with the family all at the same time. So that is what allowed me to, if you will, catapult. Catapult is 30 years.
right.
Now, 45 years doing this. Let's be clear. I know I don't look it.
Not at all, not at all.
But 30 years in the future to this day, I ended up becoming, in my state of Florida, the first Black female contractor operating at the level that I do, focusing on billion-dollar programs. And just yesterday, I hosted a billion-dollar luncheon for transportation and had the largest transportation association in the whole United States on that Zoom, introducing them to our women, Black women in construction, in addition to 3 Department of Transportations presenting their billions in construction. And so that's what we do now. That's what we do now.
Wow. So I wanna back up because I know a lot of people think they wonder, is entrepreneurship a God-given thing? Is it something that you have? Is it something that you can learn? It sounds like when you started, you didn't know nothing about entrepreneurship.
I knew less than that.
Less than nothing.
Listen, you got to know I knew less than that if I did not know not to leave my good corporate job, getting a salary, and then to go start something, not realizing that it's like people that birth the baby. Now, if any men on here or women on here, they have children, how long did you carry that child? Now, some people would say 9 months. I would suggest 10, 15, 20 years. Some of them still live at home with you.
Right. Still
So
care.
your business, yeah, come on now. So your business is the same way. Your business is like a baby as an entrepreneur. That's why when I went back to my job, by then I was working for Thacker Construction out of Atlanta, managing his whole state of Florida. I had to beg him to take me back. But when I went back this time, I set a goal for myself to save a year salary that I would not touch because I was already working. Remember, for all of you listening, you have 3 sets of 8s. You have 8 hours to work. Don't mix your work with your job. You have 8 hours to sleep, but you have a third set of 8 to do whatever else you want to do. So that third set of 8 hours, you can be an entrepreneur while on a job, I should say in a job, but you don't want to have a conflict where you are working your business while you're working your job. But my point is, as an entrepreneur, if you're in that first stage as entrepreneurs, become an expert in your craft. And basically, what that means is that once you decide, I call it niche to be rich. I do a program called Niche to be Rich. Once you decide whatever it is that you're going to do, let's say I'm in construction, let's say I'm going to be a painter. Then what certifications do I need to be a painter? How do I market and brand myself as a painter when I'm doing all the painting myself? I'm going to start there. And for I own business, AJ, that's actually how I started. I started volunteering to work with brothers doing construction. And you know what happens in the Black neighborhood I can only speak for Black neighborhoods for those who are listening. But you know what happened in our neighborhood on Friday night, AJ?
Well,
People
they,
get paid.
they get
You know
paid.
where they go, you know where they go when they get paid?
I know in my neighborhood they went to the liquor store.
That's it. Hey, and your neighborhood is just like all the rest of them. And so, well, guess what happens on Saturday morning when it's time to go to work?
They ain't there because they hung over.
But that's why they call me. Hey, I know you volunteering. Can you come help us out on this roof? Hey, we got some painting. Can you help us out? And that's how I learned while in trade school. I met these guys in trade school. But what I didn't realize is that God was preparing me for something greater in this industry. But I had to learn it to earn it. Can I say that again?
Yes, please say that again. Please say that again.
I had to earn it by volunteering with brothers to do whatever they asked me to do in construction on the weekends and after I got off from work to help them build their business. But I had to learn it in order to earn it. Now I'm able to earn it because I've been able to learn it. So when I elevated from working for small contractors, then I elevated to a little larger Black contractors until eventually I ended up working for the largest Black contractor in the United States, according to Black Enterprise magazine, where they list the top, 50, 100, top 10 back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And then I learned to manage at a different level in the construction industry. And so that's what allowed me to realize that just because I am small does not mean I have to think small. And everything we're talking about for your entrepreneurs that's listening is about mindset. So you can have all the skills, but if you don't have the mindset, positive mindset, and the faith, if you will, and the persistence to endure, to know that yes, you can learn to be an excellent entrepreneur in terms of whether or not you're born with it. I don't know about that because I think it's learned. You've
Yeah.
got to persist.
I truly believe that earn only comes before learn in the dictionary.
Thank you.
That's it. Outside of that, it does not work that way. You
Yes,
definitely
no,
have to
you've got to earn it. You've got to earn it. And sometimes when times get tough and hard, we want to quit. But I had such a burning desire. I literally, I never thought about quitting. Never, never.
So let's get back to this mastermind group because I think
Yes,
that seems like it was the foundation.
it was definitely the foundation.
So what were the top three things that you got from them? Because I feel like based on what you said, maybe some people can't go to trade school, maybe some people can't do some of the things right now, but you can get two people to meet every whenever y'all gonna meet. So
Exactly.
so what were the three things that you can see from your life now looking back that you can say, I know is because of that?
Well, first of all, I had to have a dream.
Yeah.
And the dream for me was that $1,000 that uh, I wanted to make and I wanted to save. I wanted to save. And so in my attempt to do that, the second thing I had to do was to assess where I was at the time. You see, and then like the book said, then I had to put a date on when I wanted the money by. And I had
Right.
to create a plan. So when I got to the principal, it said former mastermind group, he said, you start with two people. So that's me and one other person.
Okay.
Two of you must be in total agreement. I mean, total agreement on the third person. Why is that? You cannot, and a lot of people don't know this about masterminding, and which is why I wrote the book. I have a book here called How to Start and Run a Successful Mastermind Group. I have a book here somewhere. Anyway, it's right here. How to Start and Run a Successful Mastermind Group. Yes. And the reason for that, a lot of people don't realize they want to just pull a lot of people together. But what we don't know, AJ, is that when you pull people together that you know, but you don't know that they know each other, they may have history.
Right. And
And then you're wondering, pardon me?
I was just thinking that history can throw everything off.
It does throw things off. And so when I tell you I have perfected this process, and how do I know I've perfected it? When the author and when the publisher of the new version of this book, when they restored it, they contacted me and put me in the book.
Okay.
Okay. Because I had documented over 20 plus years of our stories and our journeys. And it boxed it up and sent it to him when he was getting ready to do the book. And they did their research. He wrote me and he said, listen, we're going to update the book. And when we did our research for months, your name keep coming up, coming up, coming up first.
What
And
book is
everybody,
this? So my audience knows.
pardon me?
What book are you talking about? So my
Oh,
audience.
the Think and Grow Rich book.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's why I wanted them
Yes,
to know that
yes,
because
thank you.
they
The
don't
yes, the
that
publisher of Think and Grow Rich, when they decided to update and restore the book,
Mhm.
they contacted me. But let me go back to that story about, you're asking about the mastermind and why it's important to have goals. I started with one person, we agreed on the third. But as we grew, and this is why I'm telling you what I've learned, people started inviting people. And we had one person who got in the group who I knew and had issues with. And sure enough, she tore that group up.
right,
So now we got to start over.
right,
Okay. So when the group gelled at 10. We set group goals. One of the group goals we set goals for 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 15, and we stopped at 15. Now we've been together for more than 30.
Wow.
Yes. So I couldn't see past 5. So I kept saying 5 years, but not realizing you don't put a date on it. Every year is 5 years. And I looked up and it was already 15. But anyway, so we set a group goal. And I said, I would love to be published in the book. True story. And documented it. Within that 5 years of writing that, totally forgot about it. Get to work one day and my office says, somebody called you and sent you an email, both that they're updating the book Think and Grow Rich, and they want to talk with you. And I said, kidding me, right? And by the time I got to connect with the guy's name was Russ Conwell, and he said, "Oh, I'm calling you because we're updating the book, and we, was doing this research." And I wait till he finished. I said, "No, sir, that's not why you contacted me." He started laughing. He said, What are you talking about? Yeah, that's why I contacted you. I said, no, sir. I said it 3 times. He said, yes, I'm telling you. He just said, wait a minute. Who is this? I'm telling you, lady, the reason I contacted you. And I let him finish because now he's upset. So then he said, but why do you think I contacted you? And I said, you contacted me because over 5 years ago, I wrote a goal that I wanted to be published in the book of Think and Grow Rich. He said, you're kidding me. You can prove that? I said, yes, sir, I can. And then I went on to tell him about all of the mastermind groups that we had created from this process that we created, and the fact that we were having an annual meeting every year in January. And we all brought our life in writing, where we had written goals for the spiritual area, the family area, the financial area, the health area, the education area, the personal development, the business or your career, whichever one you have, or both, your recreational area, your civic area, and your creative area, because a lot of people like to write books and things like that. And so he said, you got to be kidding me. He kept saying, I say, no. He said, can you prove it? I say, yes. He said, can you send me some samples or something? Literally, I boxed up one of each year. Now, the book it first started as a spiral, and it got so big that it ended up becoming like a 3-ring binder about this thick. Right. And I boxed one up for each year and sent it to them. And of course, I was so excited. I told the group. And of course, the group, they got mad with me because they said, why would you do that? You don't know him. It could be a scam. And I didn't get any of that in my gut, right? I just felt it was honest. And he wanted to prove that what I said was true, but then a month passed, nothing. 2 months passed, nothing. 3 months, 4 months. In the 5th month, nothing. Now my group is really upset. You sent our information. Now we're still friends, but how dare you? And you don't know who that was. And in the 6th month, he contacted me. He said, Miss McNeil, first let me apologize for taking so long. Russell Conwell, he just passed last year. He said, I'm sorry it took me so long to reach back to you, but I want you to know every single person on our team and in our staff has read every single page you sent me.
Wow.
Through the whole box. And he said, this is the first time in the history that we've been able to find a person who has actually documented the journey. He said, he said, for example, we were able to see one of the children who started with you. They gave a little 1 page, and then the next year was like 2 or 3 pages. And we were able to follow that person, not that person, but some of the entrepreneurs who started wandering. He said, we were able to follow every single person for all those years to see their journey.
Wow.
Exactly. And so he said, we would be so honored if you would give us, some words to put into the front of this version of the book. So over the years, we became friends. Now, of course, I'm certified with the Napoleon Hill Foundation. I'm a certified coach, and I now coach their coaches.
Okay.
Right. Just went there a few months ago. But my point is going to your question about the mastermind. So you first must have a goal, a desire, something that you want. And I also know and feel that you must have an accountability group that's going to meet with you regularly. Now, what's regularly depends upon the people.
Right.
To start, he suggests at least twice a week, but then you get to once a week. Now, the book I have found has been the differentiating factor between all of us who mastermind. That is a free mastermind. Let's be clear, because mastermind now has become such a big buzzword. There are $100,000 mastermind groups. I love listening to Dr. Golden, and he has $1 million mastermind group, right? This is not a paid mastermind. So you have masterminds that are for fee, and then you have masterminds that are for free. And the masterminds I'm referring to are those that are focusing on all of the areas of your life that is a free mastermind, because I created also the International Mastermind Association, which holds the mastermind groups accountable.
Okay.
So all 5 of my businesses I have built, AJ, from that one page of that book, page 28. How much doing what by when. And again, for those listening, if you're interested, you can text me.
Please text.
Yes, please text me at 59925. But just put the word "and" in the chat and I'll send you those 6 steps. And I say that going to your question, because a lot of people form mastermind groups and they really don't know what they're doing. They
Right.
just want to get together and talk. Nothing in writing. Because see, for us, if it's not written, you can't share it.
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna tell you the thing that stuck out with me the most about just about talking to you through your journey. When you said it said write a goal down at the number you wanted to make, because I started off saying that I started talking about your $80,000 a week payroll. Most people probably, including myself, I assume, oh, you initially said I want to be a millionaire. No, you first said I just want to have $1,000.
$1,000.
That's see to me that because I think people think you always gotta jump instead of taking
No,
steps.
no. The higher and quicker you jump, the quicker you're going to fall from that jump.
Wow.
Yes, I had to learn. Again, I had to learn in order to earn.
Right.
It took me 10 years. Come on, let me say that. It took me 10 years to finally be able to save that $1,000, because I
Wow.
had to get out of debt, and then I had to learn how to get out of debt.
Right.
We times we're in a lot of debt and we want to, pay a $25 a month I paid people to get out of debt. If I could negotiate it down, and I had to learn too. Oh yeah, you mean I can negotiate with you this
Right.
debt? So that was the learning early on that helped me when I had to pay that payroll and I didn't have it.
Right.
So I was able to go back and say, what did I do when I didn't have any money to pay that debt down?
Wow. And
Come
that
on, some
those are the steps that help you. I love to me, that's why it says despise not small beginnings. Because it sounds like the small beginnings are what gave you the foundation and the framework to be able to the lessons to pull from when you had to do the 80,000 a week and you.
absolutely.
But I do want to say this because we talked and you look, you so humble, you don't say this stuff. So I'm gonna say it for you.
Okay.
Just so people know. You say you didn't have it, but you always came up with it and you never missed one.
Not a pay. I never missed a payroll. Never missed paying a payroll.
Even when you didn't have it.
Even no, I remember now I started out in debt. I didn't have it. I didn't have it.
Wow.
So, we can talk about it now or we can talk about it later. When you talk about, okay, what do you do when you don't have it? You
Right.
want to go? You want to go
Yeah,
there?
yeah, yeah. And just so people understand, I want to make this very clear for people, right? Because I'm good at math. When you have an $80,000 a week payroll, that means you're paying people for at over $4.1 million a year. Like that's what you're paying in salaries, right? That's what you're paying to your workers. So just so people have an understanding of what you were paying out, that's not even what you were bringing in. That's what you were paying out. So yeah,
Right.
let's talk about it.
Yeah, and let me say this too, and I had to learn this from my friends, the IRS. You know those people.
I don't know them. Oh,
You don't
all right.
want to
You
go.
said the IRS.
I Internal Revenue Service.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, we ain't friends.
Well, I tell people my unofficial my unofficial business partners, because everybody wants to say, oh, well, was your husband in the business with you? No, my husband kept that good corporate job so that our mortgage and our bills could be paid. But I kept getting audited by the IRS
Wow.
because I was using their tax money to pay my payroll. And I figured that I'd pay them later.
Right.
And they, no, 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 it don't work like that. You got to pay. And not only do you have to pay us what you didn't pay us, we want penalties and we want interest.
Yes.
So
Yes.
take that number times three.
Yeah.
Oh, can I fast forward and then work backwards?
Yes, please.
To this day, I don't owe anybody
Wow.
a dime,
Wow.
not a penny. No,
Not a peso.
no, not a peso. Nope. I'm in Chile, not on a ship. For 6 months, not a peso. We paid them before we got on, or else we wouldn't be on. but but the point I want to make is this: I had to become very creative. So one of the ways I became creative was I knew that Iris told me that I must take a salary because see, I wasn't paying myself because I had to pay everybody else.
Right.
So what do you do when you don't pay yourself? You still got to pay bills. So I was tithing to the church from my company and I was paying my personal bill. They said, no, you can't do that. I said, okay. She said, the lady said, you got to pay yourself. I'm like, man, how am I gonna pay myself too? So
Right.
I would pay myself, then I would go to the bank and I redeposit my check.
Okay. Okay. So when you do that, because I'm learning from you now, is that a loan to the business now?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But I didn't realize it, but I kept good records. My undergraduate degree is in accounting. And when you're in a hole like this, all you're doing is trying to borrow from Peter to pay Paul just to make it to another week. So my every day was based upon how am I going to make this money? First, you got to make it before you can collect it. Let's talk about that. Okay,
Right.
okay. Because I wouldn't have an $80,000 payroll if I only had $1,000 in contracts.
Right. True. 100%.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, let's start right there. So what I would do is I would tell contractor A, I have a contract with him. And this is what I'm still learning. And you talked about this before the podcast started about converting the benefits.
That's
I'm
right.
going to give you this, and in return, I want you to give me that.
Mhm.
So what I started learning was that if I helped people get contracts,
Okay. Yep.
so I started partnering with white contractors
Hmm.
and I would help them because they always need somebody look like me, right?
Yep.
And so then I began to learn how to negotiate. No, you got to pay me every first started off a month. That wasn't good enough. Then started every 2 weeks. And no, you got to pay me every week.
Okay.
Now, even though they got to pay me every week, I still got a lag
Right.
because I got to pay to you. Okay. And so as I began to learn how to do this, it still was not enough to carry me over. Now, this is what nobody ever talks about, and people get upset with me about. I don't care because I'm free.
Right.
Okay. And all
Oh,
my bills. So the hurricane hit in Miami. And this is how I first of all got to this big payroll and was able to make the payroll. Hurricane hit in Miami, and a friend of mine, he's from the neighborhood, a brother.
Mhm.
He said, "Hey, come ride with me. I gotta go. I gotta go to the liquor store." No, he didn't say liquor. He said, "I gotta go cash my check."
Okay.
That's what he said. So I rode with him, and he pulled up to the liquor store. I sat in the car and I waited because we're going by to look at a job that we're gonna do the roof on from the hurricane. And he come back out. I'm looking for a bag or something, think he's gonna take a drink in the middle of the day, actually like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. And he get in the car and I'm looking, he don't have a bag, he don't have a beard. I'm like, about the second or third time he did this, weeks are going on, I decided the next time he's going to go, I'm going in with him. So I go in with him and I stand to the back, kind of looking, I see him get a man a check, and the man gave him cash.
Mm-hmm.
I said, hold up now. By the time he came out, I said, so what's he said, oh, that's Herb and Hal, the rest of that name. And he said, so every week I go and I cash my check. I said, what do you mean to cash your check? You don't have a job. You own your own business. He said, yeah, right. I give him my check. He charged me a fee. And I said, wait, I can't process this. Wait. You don't have a job. You have a company. And you take your check, your company check to him, and he cash it. He said, yeah, and then he'll hold it for me. I said, hold it for you? You got to be kidding me. I said, wait. You think he'll do that for me? So, yeah, you just have to ask him. I said, let me tell you something, AJ. Those guys, father and son, Rosenbergs.
Yes.
Come on now.
Right.
Let me tell you. Hold up. Everybody listening, y'all don't judge me because I'm free. When I tell you we started off with a couple of $1,000, at one point I owed that man 50 grand.
Wow.
No collateral, no nothing but my word and a piece of freaking paper.
Wow.
No loan documents, no give me your house, your car, nothing. Now, along with that, sure, I did not go to the bank, couldn't go to the bank because my credit was bad. So now you got maxed up credit cards because when I tell you I could get not one friend, let's be clear, not one friend to let me have a dime.
Wow.
Not a dime. Did I say not a dime?
Look, I'm so glad you're saying this because I think everybody thinks that the road is just peaches and cream once you
No,
get
sir.
$1 million contracts or
No,
once you start making
no.
it. This is so
No,
good.
because see, when you get that $1 million contract, let's talk about that $10,000 contract. You still got to perform the work. Who's going to do the work? And if you
Right.
get a subcontractor, they want to be paid when they perform the work. So what I began to learn how to do is I had to become skilled in negotiating with my partners. I said, listen, I got to rent this equipment. Used to do a lot of demolition. I actually, if you think back to Hurricane Andrew, it was a long time ago. I actually had the hauling contract for Hurricane Andrew.
Wow. Okay.
Millions of dollars. That's a whole nother story. That's another show for another day. But my point is this. So I had to begin to learn how to ask for what I needed up front. So let's take the hurricane. I had to have equipment, right?
Right.
I couldn't get the credit for the equipment. So I borrowed the credit of my client and
Okay.
had him get his material supplier to give me credit on his name and on his account, but in my name to back me.
Now, I want to pause for a second because
Yes.
you said something earlier because I want to put this together for my audience.
Yes.
The people that are helping you now sound like the people that you've been helping get contracts. Would that be a correct statement?
The type of people, yes, but the exact people, no, because
I
I
do.
elevated to another level. But
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
see,
All
I
right.
started out with subcontractors because that's
Okay.
where I was.
Right.
Then I moved up to general contractors because that's where I found they were making more money than the subs.
Okay.
Then I moved up to construction managers because they were managing all the general contractors.
Okay.
Then I moved up to what's called the program managers because they're all the engineers that control all the construction in the world. And then I moved up above them. Come on, y'all. Follow me. Then I moved up above them to what's called the general engineering contractors, general engineering consultants, who are actually the people who represent the agency. So when you go to turn your water on in the United States and you live in Philadelphia, you think it's Philadelphia Water. Philadelphia Water has hired an engineering firm to augment their staff to
Okay.
run that water.
Okay.
So in my county where I live in Florida, in Palm Beach County, when you go to turn your water on, I'm that contractor.
Wow.
Come on.
Wow.
But I had to learn that.
Right.
And I'm still learning. And so it goes back to adding a greater value. So all of my clients know this. If they're going after a program, they all know whoever's the first one to call Ann McNeil, that's who I'm partnering with.
Okay.
So what happens is they all call me first, second, or third, as soon as they hear about something, because they know the other people are going to be calling me. So they want to get in line to call me because they don't want to compete against me
Right. Right.
if they want to win.
Right. Right. Wow.
So that is how I ended up with that large payroll. And then I had to learn it wasn't about the payroll because I wasn't able to keep any money
Okay.
because I was too low down the food chain.
Right.
So what I just described to you now allows me to make greater profit for half of the net income, gross income.
Okay. Which is big, because there is a difference between the amount of revenue you bring in and the amount of net profit you keep.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so my overheads cut, all of that stuff is cut, and all the expenses, the management, all of that's cut. But here we go again. There is a word that says study to show yourself approved. I don't need to go into the rest of that because if you know the first part, you know the second part. So what happens very often, we think when we hear that and when we read that, we think it's just a spiritual concept. It is a business principle
Mhm.
that if you study your craft. These are the 6 businesses that we're talking about for those of you who might just chimed in to listen to AJ. If you study your expertise, I mentioned earlier, let's pretend I'm a painter. I'm not, but let's pretend. I used to be, but not anymore. So if I were a painter, am I the best painter as a small business? If you are a speaker, if you are a consultant, do people know you in that expertise? So study that.
Right.
Study the business of the operations of your consultancy or your speaking or your professional service business as an entrepreneur. Study that. Study the industry that you're in. Like I just mentioned yesterday, I hosted $1 billion luncheons in transportation. We host one of these every single month, but a different industry. So if you are a speaker, do you speak in the education industry? Do you speak in the tourism industry? Do you speak in the healthcare industry? What about the government industry? What industry are you in? Study that. Become a member of that association that owns that industry. That's what we did yesterday when I had the industry association president for the entire United States on our Zoom for Black women in construction, $1 billion luncheon. Study that to show yourself approved. But then also study where's the money. That's what we're talking about now, AJ. I had to begin to study. I said, wait a minute now. I'm running this payroll and I got all these expenses. Well, where's the money?
Where's the money?
But when I started looking at, wait a minute now, who's making all the money? Not just some of the money. Who's making all of the money? And they're not the people at the bottom where I was.
Right.
They were the people at the top on $1 billion programs. And so you study the business of the relationships. And I ask my clients, my coaching clients, I say, what's the last book you read on relationships? I love Jeffrey Gitomer. He talks about this book, the yellow book of sales and the green book of this and all of that. These are the relationships you must build with your clients. And what I'm learning, it's not just enough to build a relationship with my clients, but I need a relationship with my client's client. And you know who those are and what I do? AJ, you know who they are?
Who are?
Politicians.
Okay.
Politicians. Come on
Okay.
now. See, all politics are local. People want to pull me into this conversation about whoever the president is, whoever the president was. That's the old Ann McNeil. You cannot take me back there. You see, because when you begin to realize that all politics are local,
Go ahead.
do you yes, you do care who the president is, but guess what? I care more about who's my school board member that
Right.
represents my district that's going to give me the nod to win that bid. Who's my city council member that's going to give me the nod to call somebody to call me because they know my commissioner's black, I'm black, and if they want the black vote, they got to call somebody black and bring somebody black to the okay, local. Who is my county member that represents me in my county? That not only do I know, but they know me and
Right.
I'm on speed dial on their phone. So we get caught up and wrapped up sometime in things that we cannot control.
Yeah. This is good.
And then the last one, and I'm done. This is the 5 businesses we're in. The last one is the money.
Okay.
And if we don't realize that you must max every legal retirement account that the government allows, max your 401k, your Roth IRA, your short-term savings, your long-term savings, $25 a month.
Okay. Does that work even if they're starting late? Like my mother. My mother is,
20, did I stutter?
you did not. You did not.
$25 a month. I love to read, and one of my favorite books was Smart Women Finish Rich
Okay.
by David Bach. But then go to your mom, because we're probably about the same age. He wrote one called Smart Women Start Late, Finish Rich.
Okay.
Get her that copy, and let me tell you something. Walk it with her. Start late, finish rich. Yes, you can do 7 figures. Yes. Start late, finish rich. Now, I like to suggest to my clients, and some listen, some don't, and I'm so thankful for my journey. If I had not gone through what I went through, I would not know that I could buy stock directly from the corporation. I didn't have to go through a broker.
Okay.
Just go to the website and click, where they say investor relations, or Google any company you buy Exxon gas or Starbucks coffee or McDonald's or maybe American Airlines, whatever it is you use, just go to Google, to start with that, and just Google American Airlines Investor Relations Department, or you can go to their website and just click that. And when it button comes on, it drops down and it gives you all of the options, and you click the one that says investor relations. You call them and you say, listen, I like to call. I don't like to even I get a real person. And I say, look, I know your stock is selling for $100. What is the minimum I can pay you every month? Didn't know I could do that. And they will say $25, $20, or whatever. I learned that from a bad experience. I'm telling you, that's the best thing to come out of my experience. I could not pay for the experience I got. And so I became, a member of Better Investing. Go to betterinvesting.org. I'm a volunteer. I don't make any money on that. But for almost 30 years, I have been volunteering with this organization, teaching how to analyze stocks and how to invest. Betterinvesting.org. You can go to any company that's publicly traded, AJ, and you can buy the stock directly from the company. You don't need Robinhood. You don't need No Hood. No, you don't need any of that. And you talk to them directly.
Okay.
It's called Investor Relations Department. So that's for your mom. And yes, $25. So now let me go backwards to the story about the $80,000. So when I started doing this, I started with $20. excuse me, $25. It's $25. And even though I was deeply in debt, when I read these books, especially being involved with this organization, and I started seeing people who for 10, 20, 30, 40 years was still putting in $25 into an investment club and into stocks and was sitting on millions, and they didn't have a company. No company? You got to be kidding me. Nope. We all know about the time value of money,
Right.
compound interest. We hear about that. And we think it's a farce. It is true. Double it. But it's a function of time.
Right.
So yeah, see, your mom, there's no way to know how long your mom's going to live.
No, it's not.
But if you're just consistent with what we want to do, we want a big amount of money. No, start where you are with what you have, because it is the consistency that matters. And so for me, I set it and forget it. And when they came out with where you can do, where the insurance companies, we are familiar with an insurance company would go right into your account, right? And what will they do? Pull out their payment.
Yes, ma'am.
But guess what? Companies can do that too.
I mean,
You fill out the form, huh?
I was about to say, I feel like Netflix do it for most of us anyway.
But that's my point. But then why don't you reverse it?
Right.
And so instead of, making it a debt, voluntarily say, hey, look, I've spent a lot of money in McDonald's, let's say, with my children every time. So go to McDonald's.com, click investor relations, and say, look, what's the minimum I can send you every month? And they're going to say X number of dollars is usually under $50, usually under $100 a month.
Okay.
And all you do is fill out the form, just like you would do at Netflix, anybody else, and you send the form to them along with a canceled check or deposit slip, and they're going to go right into your account every single month. Now, do you care if that stock goes up or down? No. See, that's what we get confused with investing. Oh, the stock went up, No, it doesn't matter. Why? Because when you do what's called dollar cost averaging, that means that if that stock is $20, I'm only going to pay 10. So that means every other month I'm buying what? A half a share. Mm-hmm. But if that stock goes down to $10 a share and I'm only putting in $10, how much am I buying each month?
You can get one share.
Exactly. But if it goes down to $5 a share,
now I get 2 shares.
Do I care?
I just want the shares.
Mindset now. And if the stock split,
it's even better, because now shares just double.
Now you just had a course in investing.
Okay.
I'm talking to your listeners. You just happen to be on the screen.
No, I love it because I did it first. This is good.
Yeah, but does that make sense now?
Oh.
So I was able to do that, set it and forget it. And I did it for so many years. I literally forgot that I was sitting on 6 figures.
Wow.
Exactly.
Just from investing.
Just through investing. And I woke up, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to borrow money from myself. Come on now. Exactly. Because the one thing I made sure I did, even when the IRS, the best thing they did was to audit me and say, no, you got to pay yourself. And when they said that, I said, okay, pay myself, and I put the money back. So I'm borrowing the money from myself. Mm-hmm. Took me years to get to where I could turn around. But the other thing I did was, I said, if I got to pay myself, the company needs to pay my retirement. Okay. And then I need to pay my Roth IRA every year, but I need to pay it where it comes directly out of my account. So I had 5, 10, 15, 20 years of that, and I forgot.
Wow.
Because I don't have the money, and I'm not dealing with the money because it's going, and I'm not writing a check.
Right.
What is freaking $25 going to do? Well, I tell you what, set it and forget it. And this is why I learned Oprah. Listen, we can go. I don't know how much time we got here.
This is so good. I'm probably gonna chop this up to like 2 podcasts because I don't want people to look at the time and don't realize the nuggets that's in here. Like this is amazing. So
But
keep going, because I will just chop it up as much as I need because
oh my goodness. Well, let me say this about Oprah. Oprah, I was one of those Oprah people that couldn't wait to get home at the end of the day and watch her show.
okay,
And this guy, his name's not Frazier. It's something. The guy, a brother that wrote the book on financial freedom for African Americans. Cannot remember his name. You can Google his book. He shared a story about a guy that came right out of high school and went right into, let's call it was either GM or Ford. And white guy told him, like, first week he got there, he said, man, you should invest part of your payroll into, a mutual fund,
okay,
right? And he gave him a ticker, whatever. Now, what's interesting about this story is that I graduated high school in 1972. This guy also graduated high school in 1972. I was watching the show. Huh, I was watching I was watching the show. Uh, let's call it eh, let's call it, when you retire, you usually at a job, say 25, 30 years, right?
yes, ma'am.
So I was watching this show, Oprah show, and both of these guys were on her show. The guy that wrote the book, can't think of his name, Financial Freedom for African Americans. And this guy who graduated the same year I did, went to work, let's call it Ford, and then he retired and was only putting in $25 a month and was sitting on $1.2 million.
Wow,
He never increased it, never increased it, sitting on $1.2 million. And all I could do was sit there. Now, he didn't have a business, he didn't
right,
have a degree or debt. And I went and bought the book, read it, and sure enough, the story. And that's what made me, going back to the point you made about we should never despise small beginnings. And
right,
that's when I began to realize I had no excuse. Here I was, not only with one degree, but by that time I had 2 degrees and I had 2 businesses, and I was nowhere near $1.2 million in terms of, because I didn't set it and forget it.
right, right.
I think it's financial freedom for African American anyway. Phenomenal experience. And depending upon the entrepreneurs that's going to be listening to you, it does not matter your financial position, because when I was deeply in debt with all of that real estate and people were not paying their rent, because the sisters with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kids, they know the law better than you know,
Right.
and you cannot put them out. So that was going back to my beginning of my story. That's why I was so deeply in debt. I had a heart to be taken advantage of. They didn't have a gun against my head, but they had a good line and a good story, and I kept believing it until I dug a hole for myself that it was hard to get out. I got out, but again, the point is I had to take responsibility for my actions, or inactions, I should say. But this lesson of investing and learning has taught me immensely about true wealth. And you want to know about true wealth? This is another podcast for another day. You want to know where the true wealth is?
Yes, ma'am. Tell me.
It is in your spirit and in your health. It is not in the bank account. Now, you must have a bank account to
Right,
ensure you have the best of health by eating the best food and exercise, all of those things that money helps. But if your spirit is not, because again, mindset and that relationship here spiritually, this is not about any particular kind of religion. That's not my point. But my point is the inner peace we must all have will dictate the external peace we will have when you want to gather and collect stuff. So that is really where the real wealth is, mindset, and how you manage that inner peace.
wow, that's amazing. Your journey is so inspirational. Well, and you're so humble with it. I love it. Now, I want to end because you touched on it, but I really want people to understand something that you said earlier. You're on a 6-month cruise.
Yes,
You
yes,
are talking to me from the country of Chile
yes, yes,
and docked on a boat, and you are living on a boat for 6 months.
yes, sir.
That's
Butler and tow.
yeah, and that's what can happen when you take the proper steps.
Exactly, 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 exactly.
I love it.
Because I talked about this, and this is the other book I shared this with you yesterday. This book I wrote called "You Must Have a Dream to Have a Dream Come True." I would not be sitting here if it had not been a dream. And I
Right.
thought it was just something that would never happen. And I think for many of us, we have these grandiose ideas, but then we don't stop and put a date on it and put a plan on it.
It's That's so interesting you said that. When people ask me how I left the US, I always tell them I created a freedom number, a freedom date, and a freedom map.
I love it.
And within 11 months, I was gone.
Now, go back to what you just said. What you just said was my 6 steps, was half of the 6 steps. Because the first thing you said was a number. Napoleon Hill says, "What's your number?
Yep.
How much money do you want?" And oftentimes, if you don't calculate the cost, see, we want these things, but what will it cost us? Like when I ask my clients about how much money they want. Well, I just want to be a philanthropist. Okay, that's great. How much money do you want to give away? Oh, well, lots of money. No, give me a number. Because whatever number they give me, they want to give away, you've got to back into that number. How are you going to make 10 times that in order to be able to give that number away?
100%. Yeah.
Come on, somebody. Let's get real. And so the second thing you said was you said the number, and then you said a date.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
that's what the prophet says. He says, okay, how much you want? What's the date? And then the third thing you said you have a map. But that's what he calls your plan.
Right.
So so the principles for success they're not different. We just call them our framework something
Okay, right.
different.
We call them different
Exactly.
things.
Exactly. So all of your entrepreneurs listening, you've got to have a number. And you've got to have accountability. So once you did that, AJ, who was holding you accountable?
Actually, a ticket. So I'm gonna tell you that I'll say it was not a person, it was a ticket because once I came up with my date, I went and bought the ticket to leave.
Perfect.
And it was a one-way ticket. And
Perfect.
I ain't gonna lose money on no flight. So
Exactly.
that kept me accountable. And
Exactly.
I told people, I told my closest people, I'm leaving this day.
Well,
So
see, they were holding you accountable
they
because
were.
even if you met or not, you knew you are, first of all, you're not a liar
Right.
and you're not going to be made into a liar, especially when all of those factors are within your control.
Correct.
And that's what happens to many of us. We don't want to take responsibility. Quick story. Can I make it quick?
No, please go ahead, make it long.
I want to talk about responsibility because I was one of those people who did not want to take responsibility. I told all of you, my husband graduated valedictorian. I graduated, thank you, Lordy. And basically, what that means for some of you who may be of a different persuasion and don't quite get it, that meant I struggled to get out of college. But I struggled because I wanted to party. I was the university queen, and I was involved in every activities. I played golf, I played tennis. I did all of those things except study.
Right.
So so my husband would help me with my homework. But then life happened and we got married and we got these jobs. And then I decided to go into this business called construction. I knew nothing. So when I took the test just to figure, got to take a test, got to get certified. And again, study, show yourself approved. And I failed terribly, but it was the first time taking it. Then I took it again, the second time. I took it a third time. I took it the fourth time. Yes. Yeah, I can keep count. I can keep count. And so I had to study for the first time in my adult life. Now, the English and all those things straight A's. That math was not, no. No, 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 not me. No, we weren't. But we became really good friends because my husband had to tutor me. And
Right.
this is what my work day looked like. And so we talked about early mornings. This is where it comes from.
Yeah.
So So here we go. So I was determined now, because now I'm in my business and I'm using somebody else's license, and and that didn't work out. So now I got to get my own license or I'm out of business.
Right.
So I now must study to show myself approved. And that's going to the point I was making about sometime most of us, myself included, we don't want to do that which is uncomfortable and that which we may not be familiar with. Because in order for me to pass that test, I had to go back to basic math. And I have a problem saying that because eventually I did pass. But here's the story. So I have a full-time job in Miami. I live in West Palm Beach. It's a good, you
Yeah,
know,
that's a nice drive.
it's a nice drive. Okay. So I would go to work, come home, eat a little something, and my family was very supportive. And I would go straight to sleep. I would sleep until midnight. And my husband's a late person. And when he got ready to go to bed, he would tell me it was time for me to get up
Mm.
and study. So I would study from 12 o'clock midnight until 6 o'clock in the
Wow.
morning. Yes, every single night. And then get dressed and then drive to go to work. And
Okay.
I did that for years. Come on, somebody. And then eventually I took the test again. Now I'm about 5 times in. I failed by 3 points. I take it again. I failed by 2 points.
Uh,
I take it again. I failed by 1 point.
so we up to 8 now because I'm doing the math. So we up to 8 times
I finally passed by 1 point.
on the ninth time. It was the ninth or 10th time you passed by 1 point. I love that because I think so often we don't think about the journey. And
Nope.
oh man, that had to be humbling. You're a college graduate.
Wait, no, no, not only a college graduate. My undergraduate degree is in accounting. Wait a minute. Wait. That's not enough. And my master's degree is in finance.
And your husband was a valedictorian.
And yes, and he helped me with basic math.
Wow.
And
That
I share that because so often, just like I talked about the liquor store, and so often we don't want to share the real truth. I should write a book called The Real Truth. Because what happens is that there are people who will not hear your voice, they'll not hear my voice, but they will hear the voice of somebody who won't make the decision to do the inner work.
right.
I mean, God had to really work on me because, you got to study something.
Yeah. Oh, this is amazing. This is like I hope the people that get to listen to this and are listening get a tenth of what I got from it. Because if they get a tenth of what I got from it, their life can change. Because it's I think we look at the end too much, and we see Ann McNeil in Chile. Like I think when I first started talking to you, you had just left Medellin, like Colombia,
Exactly.
and going through the Panama Canal, and it's like, oh, and we forget all the steps it took to get there. And man, that's so inspiring. That's like I know I have to. I got to do everything I need to do to put the podcast out. But I promise you, I think I'm gonna just send this to my mother right now. As soon as we get off, it ain't even gonna be complete. I'm like, Mom, you gotta listen to this interview. You have to listen to this interview because, yeah, this, yeah, you're inspired.
Oh, thank you. But to
Yeah,
God be the glory, because again, that's for the story. And he don't give us, I don't think he gives us these stories and experiences. Some people call them testimonies, whatever you want to call it. They're not for us, they're for others. And I think once we understand that, you must be willing to share.
right. And you're so vibrant. Like this is, yeah, this is great. I'm telling you, this is needed. This is needed. I think you're showing people it's not too late. It does take time. Um, what would you say? So I want you to give advice for I feel like the three level of people that I work with, right?
Yeah. Yes.
What would you give advice for the 25-year-old to 30-year-old that's just getting started? What would you tell them? What would you tell the 40-year-old to 50-year-old that's in the middle, but they like, you know what, I want to do this, but I feel like I'm a late bloomer and, is this the right thing? And then what would you tell my mother who would have went to high school with you? And she's like, I have a dream. I have something I feel like God wants me to produce because that's what she says. But she knows that she got more years behind her than in front of her. What would you tell them? Because I feel like all of might be three different things, but I want to hear it from
No,
you.
you know what? I would say the same to every single one of them.
Okay.
Interesting. And that is, if I can hold the book up again, and
Yes.
this is
Don't
where
get
it
this
starts.
one.
Yeah, you must have a dream to have a dream come true.
Yeah.
And Colonel Sanders came to mind when you were asking me that question. And we know, most of us know Colonel Sanders' story. KFC was born out of an idea that he had when he started getting his Social Security check and it was not enough.
Mhm.
And he had one thing that he did well, and people would stand in line for it, and that was fry that chicken.
Mhm.
Pick one thing that you do and become an expert in that. But you must have a dream, something that's going to pull you out of bed. We're talking about, getting up early. I literally, I have to, I have to pace myself not to get up earlier.
Okay.
Once my mind is open and my eyes are still closed, my mind is running and I may as well get up and get to it.
Gotcha.
Right. And so being willing to do the work on yourself, the inner work. And so when you have that dream, whatever that dream is for you, and this is what I would suggest, then find one more person you can share that dream with who would be willing to hold you accountable, like AJ's dream was to move to Medellin, and he shared it with others. Because if you believe in that strongly enough, you must become the embodiment of that way before it catches up with you. But you become it in your thinking. And so that is where I believe strongly the work is on the mindset. And the other thing that I would say is invest. See, investing in yourself, but also invest that $20, $25 and start learning how does money make money versus thinking that you've got to go and trade time for dollars only in order to make the money.
Right.
So I would really start with that, must have that dream to have a dream come true. The idea of connecting with a spirit, like-minded and like-spirited individual who's willing to hold you accountable, start a mastermind group. Definitely use the book Think and Grow Rich. Any version you have would be fine. Connect with us also. We have a community of like-minded individuals, and we meet literally every single week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, and we discuss these principles because, again, it is iron sharpening iron that's going to help pull you through whatever that is, regardless of which one of these areas you're in. But definitely invest. I would go to betterinvesting.org, which is so much free information that you can get to help you understand, how to invest your money and then also invest in yourself. So those would be just some of the things that I would suggest. And again, connect with me by going to 59925. Just text that number and put Ann in the chat, and we'll send you those 6 steps to riches.
And that's ANN, no E at the
A-N, no E, yes.
so
A-N-N, Ann
this
in the chat.
I
Thank you.
appreciate all of your time. I know I'm keeping you away from experience in Chile, so I'm going. I feel like I could talk to you all day, but I'm gonna let you go and
Thank you.
experience Chile. But I thank you so much for just opening up and giving to my audience. And this is amazing. This is amazing.
Anytime, any subject.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Well, I'm
Okay,
definitely gonna have you on again in the future.
absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
All right, thank you.